these books. Well, I think Michelle must be a mover and shaker because they're there. So thank you very much for that. But I'd like to talk about castor oil now. So there's been a lot of questions in the break about castor oil, and I didn't explain castor oil because I wanted to pour it. You can see it's soaked in now. Now, I don't know whether you had a look at what it looked like when I first put it on, but it is spread right out. But it was like a thick bubble. Castor oil is so thick. And that's why a lot of people hesitate to put it on their skin, because it's so thick and gooey. So if you had an area, let's say bone spur, castor oil will break up a bone spur. Isn't that good news? Say you had a bone spur on your wrist and you rubbed castor oil in, well, it's so sticky. Now, if you've got time, and I don't know many people who have this much time, if you have time that for 10 minutes you just massage it, it will go in. So it'll eventually go in, but all that will go in is what you massaged in. But if you put a compress on it, you can get about 10 times more castor oil in than if you just massaged it on. And if you're busy like I am and haven't got time to massage for 10 minutes, you just put it on and bandage that on. So let's go back to Jamie's pretend sore wrist. And it was inflamed and sore. Can you see the castor oil on my wrist? Now I've got castor oil on it. So we put the ginger on in the afternoon for a couple of hours, and Jamie might say, oh, it's really hot. So we take it off. And then Jamie has her shower, maybe 8:30, getting ready for bed because she really wants to be in bed by 9. So I'm actually not going to put this on her wrist, otherwise her wrist will look like mine with castor oil all over it. But the fact that I have so much castor oil on me now shows me how much is in this compress. And so then we put that on and we bandage that overnight. And remember, when you bandage up between the hands so that it doesn't fall down. That thumb will anchor it there, and that can be overnight. In the morning, what Jamie does is she takes it off, folds it over, because she's going to use this again and again and again. That's why we call this a compress. In fact, I've used castor oil sometimes on old injuries, and I've used them for a month, the same compress. Now, you see how when I put that on, there's a lot of oil there. You can sit down now, thank you. So I might be patient and rub it in a bit. After about 3 or 4 times of being on Jamie's wrist overnight, it's getting a little dry. So then you just put another little bit in. And you might do that every 3 or 4 days. So we had a lady, I'm trying to find this lady, because she just showed me how she had a bone spur. No, it's not a bone spur. It was a corn. Yeah.
Bunion.
Bunion. And so you tell me your name again.
Doreen.
Doreen. You can go and have a look at Doreen when we're finished. And she put it on her bunion, and it's gone right down. And I said to Doreen, how long did that take? 6 months? And she said no. Maybe a couple of month and a half. So that's incredible. So if we understand that castor oil penetrates deeper than any other oil, and wherever it penetrates, it breaks up lumps, bumps, adhesions, unnatural formations. And a bone spur is an unnatural formation. Okay, the next question is cancer. So if it can break up a bunion, if it can break up a bone spur, oh, tumour's easy. And when we talked about cancer, I told you about the lady who was told she had breast cancer and she applied castor oil compress and she conquered her breast cancer. And what a lot of ladies do, if it's a lump on the breast, they'll buy an organic cotton panty liner. Now the panty liner is very absorbent and has a plastic backing. And this might be a bit thick to put into your bra. You might look a bit lopsided. But the panty liner is thin, so that can be very convenient to just slip into the bra. And again, you can use it again and again and again and again until it starts to look a bit sad, and then you might throw it away and make another one. So I'll leave it up to you. You know, if it's in an area where you're not perspiring a lot, where it might be getting soiled, you might want to change that a little bit more. But in fact, excuse my foot, but I had an injury on my leg here. In fact, not looking where I'm going, and fell down some stairs, and on that area I put a poultice on it, and then after a few days it was great. I've got a dent there now. Now let's fast forward 10 years later, and we've got an automatic car. And Michael got a new car for around the property, and it was gear, and I'm used to gear. But what happened was, I'm changing gears all the time, and we're going up the hill, down the hill, round the corner, stop at this place, stop at this place, and you're using the gears an enormous amount. And that leg started to get painful. And it just got painful, painful. And I got my son Peter to have a look at it, because he's done massage. And he said, "You had an old injury there." I said, "Actually, I did." So, see, you've got a few threads here, an old injury, and then using my leg in a way that I don't usually, so I overworked that leg because I was doing the clutch a lot, and then that tipped the scales. So he said, "Come over every night, Mum, and I'll work on it." Well, he was so painful. He said, "Just breathe, Mum, just breathe." He was going to break it up. And so after a couple of sessions of that, I said, "Peter, I'll do it my way." So I made a castor oil compress. And I wore it 24/7. Morning, noon and night. And I wore that compress for a couple of months, and I don't hear anything from that leg anymore. But an illustration to show that I had a bit of built-up scar tissue there. And I didn't even realise it until I overworked the clutch foot. But I wore it every day, 24 hours a day for 2 months. Now, I was getting relief within a couple of weeks, but I decided to just give it my best shot, and that was probably about 3 years ago now, and I almost forget that I even had anything there until I think of telling you a story about how you can use the castor oil compress, yeah?
Rheumatoid arthritis.
Rheumatoid arthritis. Now, this lady asked me a question about a surgery she had done, and it has healed, and the ginger poultice if there's inflammation. And if you want to know if there's inflammation, you'll know, because the skin will get hot. And if the skin doesn't get hot, it could be that there's a bit of scar tissue build-up. That could be the cause. Or sometimes if there's an injury that's been there a while, bone spurs can grow. And that's where the castor oil can work. And I've had 2 major injuries to my shoulders, so I've become an expert at bandaging shoulders. And what I found, when you bandage your shoulder, you see, you just put it around here, it'll just fall off. So what I did was I'd bandage it, bring it up here, and then put it under my other arm and bring it up, and that would hold it in place. But old scar tissue, bone spurs, tumours, excellent for breaking that up. Now, I say this so much on my iPad that my iPad, it just prints it for me now. The key is consistency. You know, when you type something a lot, it'll bring it up. So whenever I say the key is consistency. This won't happen once, it won't happen twice, it has to be again and again and again. And castor oil compresses on the abdomen will break up fibroids in the uterus. It'll break up cysts in the ovaries. And tomorrow night we're going to have a look at the causes of the fibroids and the causes of the cysts on the ovaries, which is a hormonal imbalance. So if someone has fibroid, number one is to balance the hormones. Number two is to wear the castor oil compress. So I saw a lady in Wales last year, and she came up to me and she said, I've seen your lecture on hormones, I'm balancing my hormones, I'm wearing the castor oil compress, but it's 6 months and the fibroids, they're no different. And I said, how often do you wear the compress? Oh, once a week. That won't do it. You've got to do it every day, every day, every day, every day. You don't have to wear it 24/7, but if you're wearing it on the abdominal area, why would you wear it on the abdominal area? You would wear it for fibroids, you would wear it for polycystic ovarian syndrome, you would wear it for cysts on the ovaries, you would wear it for constipation, you would wear it for irritable bowel. The castor oil is a herb and it works with the needs of the body. So if you were wearing it on your abdomen, you would wear it for at least 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So you can have a couple of days break. But the key is to wear it regularly. One lady who had a lump in her breast, she said, I just wear it 24/7. She said, I've just bought some cotton sports bras. And you have a company in the US called, I think it's Fruit of the Loom, and their sports bras are 95% cotton. You've got to have a little bit of elastine or they just fall down everywhere. So I don't mind a little bit of elastine. And when you're wearing it to hold a compress, you don't want it too tight, and of course you don't want it too loose. So whenever they have cotton sports bras on special, now there's one shop you have that we have, it's Target. There are no other shops I see familiar, but Target. And they have cotton sports bras in Australia. So whenever they're on special, I say to the staff, buy half a dozen and buy, so I have to tell you sizes. So in Australia, my hips are size 6 or size 8 and I've got big ribs, so up the top I'm about a size 12. But I think here in US I'm about a size 4. So what I do when they're buying the sports bras, say if I'm usually size 12 because I've got big ribs, I say buy size 14, buy size 16. So buy slightly bigger, you don't want them too tight. And as you'll see this afternoon, no, not this afternoon, we're talking about water tomorrow afternoon when we talk about hormones. There are a few contributing factors to breast cancer, and one is that the hormonal imbalance, absolutely, but another is bras. One of the worst bras is the underwire bras, because breast tissue is predominantly lymphatic tissue, and the breast tissue is designed to empty into the nodes under the arms, and you've got this wire there that just blocks it. So have a look too at sports bras, have a look at ones that fit well. I think it's a good idea for a lady to spend time in a shop trying lots on with natural fibre. But the castor oil compress can break up calcified deposits in the breast. It can break up tumours in the breast. It can also help if there's blockages, if a lady's breastfeeding. But this afternoon we're going to look at water therapy, hot and cold treatments. They're very good if there's blockages in the breast, yes? Swollen lymph nodes, your lymphatic system needs to be stimulated by rebounding. But what you can do with swollen lymph nodes is massage, and I think with swollen lymph nodes, I would spend a portion of time actually massaging the oil in the castor oil. And the castor oil can help to disperse that. When the lymph nodes are swollen, it's an indication the lymphatic system is overloaded. That's why the rebounding helps to disperse that lymphatic fluid. You can also put castor oil in the eye. Why would you put it in the eye? You could put it in the eye to help break up cataracts. You could put it in the eye to ease glaucoma. So there's a few things you can do. You can get a dropper and drop it in the eye, or if that's too difficult because it's so sticky, you put a drop of castor oil on your finger and wipe it over your eyelid. Now you see that castor oil that was obviously sitting on my hand is no longer sitting on my hand. I've managed to rub it in, but it's such a beautiful oil for the skin. Most people don't use it because it's so sticky, but it does eventually soak in. And I know in Jamaica they use the castor oil a lot on their hair. They've got very, very wavy hair. So when I was in Jamaica a few years ago, they said, what can we give you? I said, castor oil. They gave me two 1-quart bottles of castor oil. I found room in my bag because their castor oil is dark brown, and you'll notice that this castor oil is dark brown. What is the best castor oil? Oh, it's called black castor oil. That is the best, but it's not always available. At our retreat, we use the clear because it's the most freely available. And they both work. Apparently the dark castor oil is a little stronger because they lightly roast the castor oil bean. But if the clear one is all you can get, use the clear, because we see results with both of them. So that's the castor oil. I don't advise you take castor oil by mouth. It can be quite irritating to the lining of the gut, but using it externally, it's very effective. And as you can see by what I've shown you, with arthritis or sore joints, you do the ginger, and then the castor oil is a good overnight one. So now we're going to move on to potato. There are some places you would never put the ginger poultice. You would never put a ginger poultice on an eye. But you can put a potato poultice on the eye because potato is very gentle. And again, I use my plastic, put the cloth down and grate it. And you can use a bigger size grater with the potato, but you can also use this smaller one. Potato is very wet, and so I do advise don't grate too much, because there's nothing worse than leaking grated potato poultices. It can stain.
So to keep the skin on?
Yep. I do wash the dirt off, but we do have common sense there. So that's about how much potato I've put on. It's probably a heaped teaspoon. And then I fold it over again to make the poultice, the little package. And you can see that already the juice is starting to come out. And it's the juice that goes into the skin, and the potato juice is high in potassium, high in phosphorus, which those minerals help with the healing. But the value of the potato is it's very cooling. It's very soothing. So the lady that rang me this morning, who'd scratched her eye, and she said, I think there might have been a bit of dirt under my nail because it's red and raised. Potato. Potato is very cooling and soothing wherever there's tissue inflammation. So tissue inflammation would be an ingrown toenail, would be in a splinter that you couldn't get out and now the tissue's all swollen. Sprained ankle. So anywhere where you've got tissue inflammation, the potato is very good. So my girlfriend, when I was living in the rainforest and all our kids were little, she rang me and I could hear her little baby screaming. I said, what's the matter with Louie? Little Louie was 10 months old. My girlfriend's a real hippie, so her little baby crawls around the grass and the wooden floors with no diaper on. She said, I don't know what happened, but his little penis is twice the size. It's swollen. Now, what are you going to do? And if you take him to hospital, what are they going to do? I said, quickly make a grated potato poultice for tissue inflammation. So she made it about this size, maybe a little smaller. She put it over the area. She put his diaper on. She said that he stopped crying within a few minutes, because any area that's hot, raised, angry, sore, this is very soothing. The little guy fell asleep, and he slept for a few hours. She kept going in, making sure he was all right, because he'd been screaming, had already been screaming for an hour. She didn't know what she was going to do, such a tender area. And when he woke up, she quickly changed his little diaper, everything back to normal. Sometimes you don't know. Maybe it was a bite, maybe a little bit of dirt got in, I don't know. Sometimes you don't know. And yet a simple grated potato. One of the reasons I explored these in detail was that I didn't want to give my children drugs, and the other reason was I live in the rainforest. We're an hour away from anywhere, and you can do so much with these simple things that you've got in your home, because every home has a potato. We've also helped quite a few stepping on rusty nails. I stepped on a rusty nail, just did a grated potato. My little grandson trod on a rusty nail. Now when the men are building, where do the little boys want to be? Where the men are building. And he'd followed them where they're building, and there were planks out there with rusty nails coming out, and he had one of those rubber crocs on, you know those, do you call them crocs? And he stood on it and went through the croc right up into his foot. Anyway, he was crying, and my husband said to his mum, because it's my son's little boy, take him to his grandma. So the first thing that you do, and what are little boys that have been following the men on the job site, they're dirty. So you wash him. So I put him in the bath. You know, the bath relaxes him, soothes him, and you can wash the wound because it was quite dirty. And then I did a grated potato poultice about that size and put the little 3-year-old foot on that, and then bandaged it on, put a sock on, and put his little croc back on because, you know, they're quite fat. And he was very happy, and off he went. I did this about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They bathed him. They put a fresh one on overnight. In the morning it looked so clean and looked so good, and it wasn't sore, but they put shoes and socks on him for the day. And by the end of the day it was starting to get a little bit red, so they put another grated potato poultice on. By morning it's all clean again. End of the next day, so 3 nights they did the grated potato poultice, and they didn't do it again because it was all healed. Now if it gets red again, what do? Another grated potato poultice on it. Now, after the 3rd night, William said to me, Mum, look at this. And he showed me the poultice. He kept it. He took it off the boy. And there were little bits of almost fluorescent blue metal. The grated potato had pulled the rusty metal out of the foot and cleaned that up. Isn't that incredible? So just grated potato. What about tetanus? A lot of people fear tetanus. Well, let me tell you about tetanus. Horses carry tetanus. So if you get an injury near a horse or in ground where a horse has been, there's a possibility of tetanus. But tetanus can only get a hold on the body if the wound is deep and it's sealed on the outside. And what the grated potato will do, it'll keep it open. And it'll keep it open until it heals from the inside out. So there is no need for the tetanus shot. But I'll tell you of a severe situation that happened. When we were living in the rainforest, we had this guy who was a real hippie. You've heard of hippies? Real back to nature. He lived in a little caravan on our property. And one of the guys said to me, have you seen Chris? He was sickling the grass. You know, a sickle is like a round thing. Barefoot. And the sickle went into the end of his, at the back of his ankle. I said, really? Ooh. I didn't hear anything for a few days. Then one of the guys said, have you seen Chris? He's red. His foot's like a big red balloon, and there's a big red line going up his leg, and he's lying in bed smoking marijuana waiting for nature to heal. See, his body was knocking hard, And he was just blocking out the knock with the marijuana. If he hadn't been having marijuana, he would have been in so much pain, he would have been looking to get some sort of relief. I said, bring him up. They had to carry him, he couldn't even walk. And what I did, and we'll look at this tonight, I did alternating hot and cold foot baths on him. I couldn't have it really hot, but I did alternating hot and cold foot baths, and I made the biggest grated potato poultice I've ever made for the whole foot. I didn't do anything to the red line because the red line was there because of the foot, and it had sealed. So that was a perfect environment for tetanus. I wonder how long he would have lasted, lying in bed, smoking his marijuana, waiting for nature to heal. Nature will heal. You know that little two-letter word? Nature will heal if you give it the right conditions. And in an injury, the blood tends to sit or pool in the area. In an injury, sometimes it seals on the outside and it hasn't sealed on the inside. And that's where the water treatments and the poultices can help. You know, I could tell by looking at and as nurses we're trained to read body rather than words. His body language told me that his pain had gone down, I would say 40%. Just from the alternating hot and colds, we did 3 times, and then the grated potato. And now he could walk. I said, come back in 2 hours. Now, if he came back in 2 hours and there was no difference, we'd take him straight to hospital. But when he came, but the fact that his pain levels had reduced, what's that telling me? That we're getting there. When he came back 2 hours later, the red line had gone down a few inches. And when I took the poultice off, the wound was oozing. That's what you want. It has to heal from the inside out. And because the big red foot had gone right, not back to normal, but it is certainly reducing, what's his body telling me? We can do this, we can do this. So I did it, I think about 10 o'clock. I did it a few hours later, I think probably 2 o'clock. And then I said, come back at 6. I said, take the poultice off, have your shower, come back, we'll do hot and colds, and I'll do another grated potato. And every time he came back, the red line's going down, down, down. I said, come back in the morning, we'll have a look. When he came back in the morning, he was almost walking normally. The foot was normal. The red line had gone right down, so instead of being 2 foot long, the red line was only a few inches long. And it was oozing very nicely. And then I just left it with him. I said, if you keep doing this, it should be fine. But I said, you must not let that wound heal. So the wound was probably, at the back of his ankle bone there. I said, keep an eye on it. And if that wound closes, you'll know it, because then the pain levels will rise. And I said, with all due respect, Chris, can you just leave the marijuana aside? And he also saw that this alternating hot and colds and grated potato, that had done much more than his marijuana. So it's a very powerful poultice, is the simple grated potato. If someone's got an ingrown toenail, you combine the hot and colds, which we'll look at tonight in detail, and the grated potato poultice, and get that swelling right down before you even try to cut a nail. You can't cut the nail when it's red and swollen and sore. Again, very gentle. You can put it any place where the skin is tender. Very good on the eyes, swollen eyes, sore eyes. When guys have been welding, sometimes they get red eye. You put that on. And also you call it pink eye, conjunctivitis. Very good for that. If it doesn't do it the first time, just keep doing it until it does. So you can see there's a time to do the potato poultice, and there's a time to do the ginger, and there's also a time to do the castor oil. And some people just alternate them. The next one we're going to look at is cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper moves blood, as we looked at, I think yesterday. It's not a nervous system stimulant, it's a blood stimulant. So it can be used internally. We looked at it yesterday when we looked at heart. Remember the 3 things it'll do? It'll thin the blood, it'll open the capillaries, vasodilation, and it'll strengthen the arterial walls. Even though cayenne pepper will do that, if you have any internal bleeding, it'll seal the bleeding. So that seems like a contradiction. Open the capillaries but seal the bleeding. Remember Psalm 104 verse 14? God gave herbs for the service of man. It'll work with the needs of your body. So a lady told me this story. She said she was nearing menopause. She was bleeding heavily from her uterus. She didn't know what to do. She'd been bleeding heavily for 10 days. And then a naturopath said to her, take 2 capsules of cayenne pepper 3 times a day. She said by the end of the day her bleeding had slowed right down. So heavy bleeding internally, the cayenne pepper can be used. I appreciated what Edna told us yesterday. Remember she said she was taking 40,000 heat units cayenne pepper capsules and her body said yes. Then she took a 90,000 one and it came straight back out. So what was her body saying? That's a bit strong, that one. Go for the lighter one. When I was in Jamaica, I was staying with a couple. The lady was an accountant. They were in their 40s, and the man owned a construction company. And he was very well built. He didn't say very much. He had this construction company, and he worked a lot. Because the lady, I worked more with her in the natural remedies and the lectures I was giving. And then one night she was working and he was there, and he came up and said, Barbara, I've got a story for you. He's just, I said, yeah? He said, I hurt my back at work. And he said, and it was so sore I couldn't sleep. And he said, I was walking the floor. He said, it helped a bit. He said, I knew I just had to give it rest, but he said it was hard to even lie down. It was so painful. He said, I don't like painkillers. I'm not going to take them. And he said, and a voice said in his mind, he's a Christian, take cayenne pepper. And he was surprised, because who would take cayenne pepper for pain? But he was in so much pain, he thought, I think that was the voice of God. I'm going to take cayenne pepper. He took half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. That's pretty strong. But you know what you do? You just mix it in water and just throw it down. It's a bit tingly, a bit hot. Then he just chased it with some water. He said his pain, which was something like 9 out of 10, it was, he couldn't sit, he couldn't lie, it came down to an 8 out of 10. So half an hour later, he had another half teaspoon in water. Came down to 5 out of 10. And he went to sleep. And the next day, his brother in America is a naturopath. He said, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. He said, told the story. And his brother laughed and he said, cayenne pepper is a natural analgesic. It's a natural painkiller. So when I was helping a man, I think it was 2021, his wife rang me and she said, my husband's hand has gone through a roller. There's this machine, his hand is squashed. She said, he's in so much pain. I said, get him to take the cayenne pepper. If he's in a lot of pain, 2 capsules 3 times a day. She said, it's helping. And she said the doctor wants to take off the top of 2 of his fingers because they've turned black. This man's not that old, he's in his 40s. And I said, no. I said, sprinkle cayenne pepper on. Sprinkle cayenne pepper on and wrap them up, and the cayenne pepper will bring the blood to the area. Well, he started dialoguing with me. He said it was too painful, and he's a tough guy. I said, how much cayenne pepper did you put on? He put a half a teaspoon on each finger. I said, too much. And the girl said, that's my husband. It's just 110% to everything. I said, go lightly, a little sprinkle. And what I also suggested was put it with aloe vera. Aloe vera contains a growth stimulant. Do you know he kept his fingers? Doctor could not believe it. We didn't do hot and colds at first because the feeling in the tips of his fingers wasn't good, so we used the cayenne pepper. Now there are some people you cannot put their feet in hot and cold water. You cannot put cold feet in hot water. You cannot put people who have peripheral neuropathy, you can't put their feet in hot water. You can't put people that have no feeling in their feet in hot water. So how can you bring feeling back into their feet? Cayenne pepper. So how do you use the cayenne pepper for that? I've folded over a sheet of plastic and I've got a piece of kitchen paper here, and I'm going to dot that with olive oil, and then I'm going to sprinkle cayenne pepper on that. And you can put the foot straight on that. Now, it's important not to put too much olive oil on this or you'll get olive oil everywhere. So what I do, I'll put it on there, I just dot it. And when I've dotted this, I'll show it to you. Because there's nothing worse than olive oil leaking out on the sheets. And this is something that is worn overnight. So it's a little bit difficult to wear this when you're walking around. So this is definitely a poultice that well, we'd call this more a compress. And this is something that you'd wear overnight. And the reason for the olive oil is so that the cayenne pepper will stick to it, because if you don't have a bit of olive oil on this, the cayenne pepper just falls off to the side. So you'll see that I have dotted that. I think you can see that. I've dotted that with the olive oil, and now I will sprinkle it with cayenne pepper. I like the colour of this cayenne pepper. If the cayenne pepper you buy is brown, it usually means it's a bit old. But this is nice and red. So then you sprinkle about a half a teaspoon on each one. So a half a teaspoon per foot. And the foot goes straight on this. So the skin of the foot touches this. And what the person will find, let's say you're doing this on a person that has lost feeling in their feet, because remember what this is, it's a blood stimulant. By morning, often they've got pins and needles in their feet. Now, if I hadn't put the olive oil on that, I wouldn't be able to hold it up, would I? So all the olive oil does is causes the cayenne pepper to stick to the paper. And then the foot goes straight on that. And then you can put a sock on and they can wear it overnight. Remember what cayenne pepper is? It's a blood stimulant. It stimulates blood to the area. We have a lot of ladies that do our program who complain of cold feet. And when they complain of cold feet, I said, well, look what you're wearing. I'd have cold feet if I hardly had anything on my feet in the middle of winter. Our feet should never get cold. Perfect circulation is required for perfect health. You can't have perfect health without perfect circulation. Perfect circulation means my feet, my hands, my whole body is the same temperature. And that is an indication that the blood is flowing very nicely. But if the feet are cold, there's not a lot of blood going down there. When I get up in the morning, especially in the winter, I never put my feet on the cold wood floor. Otherwise my feet will get cold. I have slippers there. So when people say their feet are cold, I say, I'm sure they're not cold in bed overnight. You have a hot shower, you go to bed, you're warm. So have a look at what you do to your feet when you get up in the morning. So the ladies that have cold feet, we put this on their feet overnight, and by morning their feet are warm. And sometimes you only have to do it just for that one night. But if someone's lost feeling in their feet, a lot of people that have lost feeling in their feet is because of chemotherapy. One of the side effects of chemotherapy is peripheral neuropathy, meaning they've lost the feeling in their feet. And this can bring feeling back into their feet. Also diabetics. Diabetics often lose feeling in their extremities because of the high amount of glucose in the blood. Remember, connecting with those protein molecules, sticking up the little capillaries, blocking them so the blood's not getting down to the extremities. And this can bring feeling back into the feet. If someone has no feeling in their feet, they might do that every second night. If you do that every night, by the third night, you're going to feel like your feet are on fire all the time. And this brings me to another point. Last year I got a text from staff at our retreat saying, we've got a man who says at night his feet feel like they're on fire. And he's got his feet out the end of the bed and he can hardly sleep. I said, put cane pepper compresses on his feet. And the staff wrote back and said, are you sure? I said, I am. So they put the cane pepper compresses on his feet and he slept all night and he didn't have the fiery feet anymore. So the fiery feet were actually also a cause of poor circulation. So different people react in different ways depending on what's happening in their body, sometimes depending on medication, depending on history. So there can be a whole lot of reasons for these things. But when you treat the symptoms and you get a response, that's the body saying, yeah, this is what I want to do. Any part of the body that has lost feeling, and sometimes stroke victims have lost feeling in maybe arms, maybe legs, you apply the cane pepper compress. We had one man and he was in his 80s, he just lost a leg because he'd lost feeling in the leg, so they took the leg. And he was starting to lose feeling in the other leg. So we made the biggest cane pepper compresses we'd ever made. We made them about this long and we wrapped it round and round and round his leg. And we also put one on the bottom of his foot. And it started to bring life back into his leg. How nice. I had one lady, she said, I've had cold feet for 10 years. She said, now my toes are numb. You see, it's the blood that brings the life. And when those feet are continually cold and the toes lose life, what's the next step? Gangrene toes, removing toes. Not very nice. So the cane pepper compress can be used for anywhere where they've lost feeling. Also, if people have, it's called Raynaud's, cold hands, they can wrap their hands in the cane compresses overnight. Underactive thyroid gland. For an underactive thyroid gland, you would do about half that size and apply it to the front of the throat. And I was talking about the cane pepper compress to wake up the thyroid when it's underactive. And one of our guests asked the staff, they said, I'd like to try that overnight. And they didn't tell me. And the staff did it. And the next day the lady came to me and she said, I've got good news and bad news. I said, what's that? She said, the good news is it worked. The bad news is I didn't sleep all night. You see, the thyroid gland controls metabolism. And so when you put the cane pepper on, it wakes up the thyroid gland, waking up the metabolism, so she was a little bit wired that night. So if you're going to use it for an underactive thyroid gland, the advice is to wear it for a couple of hours in the morning. In the morning. And what the people usually find, it gets really hot, then it settles down, then it can get hot again. Maybe wear it for a couple of hours and then you would discard that. Tomorrow night when we look at hormones, we look at how often thyroid problems are due to a hormonal imbalance. So we'll look at that. I was lecturing at Living Springs Retreat in Alabama, and there was a very large lady there. She was about 250 pounds, and she was prone to panic attacks and she had an underactive thyroid gland. And so we put a cane pepper compress on her thyroid gland through the morning lecture. And as I'm lecturing, I saw her touch it like this, then rub her eye. And I knew what was about to happen. Notice what I also said about this lady. She was prone to panic attacks. So she started to scream, and I started to laugh. And why I laughed was just to settle everyone, because everyone looked and I said, it's okay. She's just touched her eye with the cane pepper. The good news is you'll have better eyesight for tomorrow. And I said to the staff, quickly bring some cold cloths and we'll wipe it. And because I was talking firmly And lightly, and even laughing a little bit, everyone settled down, and it even settled her down. I said, you know those capsicum sprays that the police have on their belts? I said, you know those criminals have better eyesight the next day? Now it does hurt. It is a little sore, but it does not hurt. Remember in Jethro Kloss's book, Back to Eden, he devotes half a page to every herb, and he devotes 10 pages to cayenne pepper. It's a remarkable herb. It might feel like it's burning you, but it actually doesn't. It stimulates the blood to that area. So I think cayenne pepper sprays are great. They certainly disarm the criminals, but it actually doesn't damage them. It really doesn't hurt them at all. But cayenne pepper can be used in the eye for the pressure that is often experienced with glaucoma. And isn't that what glaucoma is? It's pressure in the eyes. Please don't ever agree to having a needle in the eye. And that's what medicine suggests if you have glaucoma. Every time that needle goes in, it does more damage. And I think people are more open to trying cayenne pepper if they've got a choice of cayenne pepper or a needle in the eye. Is that right? Now what you do is you make it very mild. You might put a tiny pinch in a little glass and fill it with boiling water. And when it cools, strain that through a hanky. Do you call it a hanky? Hanky. And then wash the eye with it. Now it'll have a little tingle. And one man said, the eye drops from the doctor tingle, so what's the diff? But that cayenne pepper will release pressure in the eye by opening all the little capillaries in the eye. And it's also a good idea to take it by mouth at the same time. Yes?
How much cayenne?
You would probably only use the tiniest little pinch, and half of that looks like it'd only be about a quarter of a cup of water, doesn't it? So just a small amount. Necessity is the mother of invention. You play with it. If you think, well, that didn't hurt, maybe you'll make another batch just a touch stronger. And remember, if it does tingle, it'll settle. It won't tingle for long, yes?
What about macular degeneration?
Macular degeneration is helped by the cayenne pepper and also by the castor oil in the eye. But the research is showing that the majority of macular degeneration today is caused by margarine. So margarine didn't help with, it doesn't help with lowering heart disease at all. Next thing I'm going to look at is charcoal. So let me explain charcoal. Because charcoal is unique. In fact, nothing else does what charcoal does. So I'll write it up to show you. What charcoal does is it absorbs. It absorbs and neutralises poisons. And this is why they often use it in hospitals for overdoses. They'll give them charcoal because it absorbs and neutralises. Now we looked at a few things this morning that draw. We looked at the drawing power of the potato, of the onion. So this draws, absorbs and neutralises, and that is called adsorb. Adsorb means absorbs and neutralises poisons. So this is the only time really that the word adsorb is really used. It's for charcoal because it can absorb and neutralises poisons. NASA use it for outer space to filter the water. NASA use it in outer space to filter the air. Hospitals use charcoal to filter blood for dialysis. So it is acknowledged in many circles the power of charcoal. because it absorbs and neutralises poisons, it can be used externally and it can be used internally. Many people that travel through Asia travel with charcoal tablets, because if they get what's called the barley belly, or if they get diarrhoea, they take the charcoal. And the charcoal absorbs and neutralises the poison. So it's very good for diarrhoea, for cases of diarrhoea. In fact, I have charcoal tablets in my bag wherever I go, because it'll absorb and neutralise poisons. One lady told me that when she was younger, she'd overdosed, and when they took her to hospital, they gave her a choice. They said, we can pump your stomach out or we can give you charcoal. She said, I'll take the charcoal. So many emergency departments are using charcoal now because it absorbs and neutralises the poisons. So as soon as the charcoal's taken, it absorbs and it takes the poison into itself. Its surface area is incredible, and at the same time it neutralises the poison. So if a person has had an overdose and they take the charcoal, as soon as the charcoal's in there, it's now safe, because it's held that poison in it, and it can go all through the body and come out, and it cannot hurt. Yes?
If you're doing it for that, if you take the powder, does that work faster than a capsule would?
If you take a capsule, you have to wait for the capsule to be broken down. What I've got, and someone gave it to me, it's paper, and the charcoal tablets are all in little sections, so I can just tear one out. So the tablets are very good, because that can be taken straight in. But also, if someone has an infected tooth, a sore tooth, they can put a charcoal tablet right down between the gum and the cheek, and it can absorb poisons out of that. Yes?
Does that work like with spider bites?
Yes, it certainly can help. So we'll look at externally now. It can be used for all cases of poisoning. And I know in America some of your ticks carry Lyme's disease, is that right? So if there's a tick bite, the first thing you do is you put charcoal on it. So I got a tick, you might see that red spot there. So that was a tick bite that I got, I think 2 weeks ago now. And we get tick bites all the time in Australia. You know, they're rarely do they have a Lyme's disease. I think in America it's mostly. And it'll be red for a few days and then it'll go. Well, this is 2 weeks, and because it was quite red the next day, we just put charcoal on it. And I kept charcoal on it for, I don't know, about 4 hours. But I just noticed the other day, oh, it's still a little bit red. It's not sore at all. So charcoal can be used for tick bites, for spider bites, for wasp bites, bee stings, snake bites, any type of poisoning. Because as soon as that charcoal is applied to the area, it'll immediately absorb and neutralise the poison. In Australia, we've got these ants called jumping ants, and their sting is like fire. And I was out in the garden weeding one day, and a jumping ant bit me. Oh, so painful. So I just ran inside and put a block of ice on it, and that certainly took the sting away. I just wanted to finish weeding the garden, and I didn't want to make a charcoal poultice. And as soon as the ice wore off, so I thought, no, I've got to make the charcoal poultice. Now, when you mix charcoal with water, it's like mixing dirt and water. It doesn't mix very well. And so when you do make a charcoal poultice, and I'm going to show you the mess-free way to make a charcoal poultice, because it's messy stuff. And the cheapest way to make it is to make it with psyllium. Just with psyllium husk. When you put water with psyllium, it goes like a gel. Now you can use slippery elm, the powdered bark of the slippery elm tree, and that certainly is a drawer in itself. But it's quite expensive. But the psyllium's a lot cheaper. So I'm going to use a little bit of psyllium and a little bit of charcoal, probably about equal. I'm very careful when I take the lid off the charcoal. And when I was in the rainforest, we just used to use the charcoal out of the fire, but now that I'm civilised, I buy activated charcoal. So you can see there's a little bit more charcoal there. And you very quickly put the lid back on the charcoal. You do not want to drop this. Then I seal that. And then I'm going to mix the charcoal and the psyllium together. And when I think that's fairly mixed together, I'm going to add a little bit of water. And it'll go like a soft gel. There's a method to my madness, you'll see it in a minute. So I probably do more than double water. And then I'm going to seal it again and then massage that all together. So that'll start to gel up in a minute. And when it starts to gel up, I don't think I mixed it very well. When it starts to gel up, I start to smooth it out so that it fits into the bag. Yeah, that's gelling quite nicely. And you can use a rolling pin if you like, if you're going to make a bigger one. And you smooth it out so it fits the whole bag. And then this can just stay in the fridge. And notice that was very mess-free. Out to the corner. And so now it looks like that. Got a few holes there, we'll fill that up. And I just put that in the fridge. And it's like a gel. And when someone has a tick bite spider bite and they're in pain, you run inside, you grab this out of the fridge, you cut the corner, then you cut the edge, peel the plastic off, straight on the area. And so the charcoal gel is touching the skin and the top has got that bit of plastic on it, and then you just bandage it on. So easy. Mess-free. Now if you make this and you don't think you'll use it for a while, you can put it in the freezer. And when you put it in the freezer and there's a snake bite or a bee sting or whatever, you quickly take it out of the freezer, and because it's so thin, it starts to melt quite quickly, and you just cut what you want, take the top plastic off, put it on, and it's so cold it feels very nice, because whenever there's a bite there's usually inflammation there, and then you just bandage that on the arm. So easy. You can see that's very thin. So last week when I was in Sacramento, I just demoed this and a girl came up. She looked like she's about 25. She said, I got a spider bite 2 days ago. Do you want to look at it? Oh, it didn't look very nice at all. I said, quick, go and get that. Go and get that poultice. And we cut it and put it straight on, and I said, you take the rest home because now you've got 4. There's 4 bits there. So that's very easy. Yes?
Can you, if you made like a big one, could you cut it into like pieces and put like saran wrap or something under it to put it in the fridge so that
you certainly could. Now if I cut this into 4, I wouldn't need to put saran wrap on because top and bottom have the plastic.
But will it dry out if you don't have something all the way around?
You would need to put it into a bag, yeah, in the freezer. But remember, you cut the edge and peel the top one off, and then that charcoal goes straight on. So that's your charcoal gel. That's just the easiest way I know to make it. So when the children were little, we'd get a bowl and we'd Giles Crime Smith, and then you get the bits and pieces and put them together and quickly make your charcoal poultice and find a cloth. Well, this is just there. It's just there in the fridge. It's just there if you're not going to use it. If you put it in the fridge and don't use it for a month, the psyllium maybe will start to go a bit mouldy. So that, because it's vegetable matter, that won't last, but you can put it in the freezer. Yeah?
Is charcoal okay for IBS? I've heard that you shouldn't take charcoal with a meal.
Now, charcoal absorbs and neutralises poisons. Agatha Thrash Dr. Agatha Thrash, who started Uchi Prine, she did a lot of experiment with charcoal, and she found that it never absorbs nutrients. And some people think that it'll absorb all the good stuff out of the food, but it won't. But if you take it with medication, guess what it's going to do? So why does it absorb all the medication? Because it sees it as a poison. Absolutely, absolutely. So the good news is it won't absorb anything good, but I don't see any reason why you wouldn't use it for irritable bowel. But for irritable bowel, it is...
Snake? This doesn't do anything for poison snakes, does it?
Absolutely. It absorbs and neutralises poisons.
But you still need to rush to the doctor, right?
I'll leave it up to you. I think it's an idea if you're concerned, but my friend who's a doctor, her son got bitten by a brown snake. Brown snakes are deadly in Australia. So they gave him charcoal by mouth, and they put the charcoal poultice on, and they took him to hospital. And he didn't need the anti-venom, but they just wanted to check him out. And what the doctor was so intrigued by this, he tested the poultice, and the poultice was full of venom. And you'll see here we've got a nice bit of onion syrup. So you can see it doesn't take long to form the syrup. And tomorrow, or even tonight, everyone can have a little taste of that. Maybe bring your own spoon. A tiny spoon. And so ends our natural remedies seminar. We've got time for a couple of questions. Yes?
I have a question about the cayenne pepper. So, do you know what boloki is?
Do I know what?
Boloki. It's a herb that you take. It's made from mealworms, and it's supposed to thin your blood if you have like a clotting disorder or carry a gene for thrombosis. So I was curious if you can take cayenne pepper for like a clotting disorder or thrombosis or something.
Yes, so the question is there's some sort of worm. Is that
It's a mealworm.
a mealworm that can be used for... I think I'd prefer myself to use cayenne pepper. So, remember...
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
He wants me to take 2 of these, and they're very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you can see, I lived in a rainforest for 12 years, and my first husband was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and we didn't have much money, so I learnt to do a lot of things on the cheap. And even though I'm not in the rainforest anymore and not married to such a man, married to another man, and have been for 25 years, and I do not have to be concerned, I'm still very mindful that the average person, has to think of the dollar symbol, and it's so easy and so cheap, all of this. Yeah?
I had heard one time a story you had told online about how you can use cayenne pepper to stop bleeding. If someone's bleeding really bad. And so I had a person who was on blood thinner, and they got a bad cut on their leg. And so I didn't have anything around, and so I grabbed some cayenne pepper and I put it on there, and it did stop the bleeding, because otherwise with their blood thinner they would just go.
That's right. And if someone's on blood thinning medication, they can't have an operation for quite a few days till they stop the blood thinning medication. But if you're on cayenne pepper and you're going to have an operation, no problems.
The thing that I always wondered though is because shortly thereafter using the cayenne pepper, they got an infection there. And I thought, what was the cayenne pepper that I had bought from the store, and it was actually here in Lincoln, was it not clean from the...
Do you know what's important to think about is that we have more...
That's why. It's not, if you get it at a grocery store...
Let me finish. We have more to fear from within than without. Got that? No matter what happens to the body, no matter what goes on the body, if you've got good blood, if you've got blood that is well nourished, well oxygenated, it'll deal with anything. So it's
Blood-thin blood.
it's actually not what goes on the body, it's actually what's in the body. So, and that many people are fearsome of germs, of bacteria, of this. We've got nothing to fear of that. If we give the body the right conditions, it can heal, no matter what goes on it. And Dr. Matthew Walker, you might have heard of him, he's the juicing man. He went and lived in a leper colony to show that he would not get leprosy because his body was so strong and healing well. So it's this theory we've been brought up with from young children that the germs cause disease. No, they don't. They don't. They are just opportunist organisms there. It's the condition of the body. And do you know, on his deathbed, Louis Pasteur, he said, Bernard was right. It's not the germ, it's the condition of the body. Ha! So on his deathbed, he refuted his theory, but...
was there something I should have or could have done to...
Probably more cayenne pepper.
Actually, I wanted to know. I've always wanted
And tonight we'll be looking at the alternating hot and cold water treatments, and you'll see how those water treatments in conjunction with what we've looked at this morning can be a very powerful way to bring about or to boost that healing in the body. Yes?
I think I heard that somebody using cayenne pepper to stop a heart attack.
Yeah. Now, I could keep you here for another 4 hours with stories, but it's absolutely true, and I have seen it and done it, because what cayenne pepper does is it thins the blood, it opens the capillaries, and so you get a better flow of blood all through the body. And so that is true, you can bring someone around with a heart attack. So that's another herb I travel with, cayenne pepper. So if the person's having a heart attack and no one's looking, I just shove the cane in. Oh, he's revived. Because they can say, oh, are you a doctor? Oh, that's dangerous. Oops, the cayenne pepper spilled into his mouth. Yeah.
How much?
Well, in a crisis, you just shove it in. But when I did it, I probably put about a half a teaspoon in. You're just moving fast, and remember that you can't hurt the person. Yes?
Okay, my husband, they want him to take an aspirin a day, but he refuses. He takes
Good.
cayenne pepper.
Good.
And so how much should it take to take the place of a small...
Half a teaspoon 3 times a day. If he's happy with 1 teaspoon, absolutely. Remember, he can have a bucket load of cayenne pepper a day and he'll never thin his blood to the point where he'll bruise and he'll bleed from his nose. But of course, we're not going to have a bucket full a day. So it's a very safe herb. So you say to the doctor, thank you for your advice, and you just leave.
That's what we did, but he was also having signs of a stroke. He couldn't walk and he couldn't talk. And so we gave him cayenne pepper. And by the time the ambulance got there, he was talking and stuff. But he also threw up after we gave him the cayenne pepper. So what?
Yeah, that's okay. Maybe it was just a bit strong. It depends if he had any food in his stomach. Maybe so. But, you know, throwing up's a wonderful thing. It's out.
To shift back to the charcoal, right now there's so much like with heavy metals and detoxing. Is charcoal the best natural remedy?
What you want is something that will chelate the metal, and I'm mindful of the time, so we'll just answer this question and we'll finish, because we'll be together again tonight. There are 2 metal chelators. One is chlorella, and it's a seaweed, and the other is, you call it cilantro, yeah? We call it fresh coriander. These are both metal chelators, so they chelate the metal in the tissues, and the charcoals can certainly take a place in pulling it out. So thank you for all your attention and for being such a wonderful, lively audience.
Thank you.